Hare
Namo
Krishna.
Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Goswami Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschade Sutarine Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Madhya Lila, chapter 2, verses 1 through 24. Text 1. While relating in synopsis form the last division of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this chapter I shall describe the Lord's transcendental ecstasy, which appears like madness due to his separation from Krishna. Text 2. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Chandra. And all glories to all the devotees of the Lord. Text 3. During his last 12 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always manifested all the symptoms of ecstasy and separation from Krishna. 4. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's state of mind day and night was practically identical to Radharani's state of mind when Uddhava came to Vrindavan to see the gopis. 5. The Lord constantly exhibited a state of mind reflecting the madness of separation. All his activities were based on forgetfulness, and his talks were always based on madness. 6. Blood flowed from all the pores of his body, and all his teeth were loosened. At one moment, his whole body became slender, and in another moment, his whole body became fat. 7. The small room beyond the corridor is called Gambira. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to stay in that room, but he did not sleep for a moment. All night he used to grind his mouth and head on the wall, and his face sustained injuries all over. Although the 3 doors of the house were always closed, the Lord would nonetheless go out and sometimes would be found at the Jagannath temple before the gate known as Shimadwara, and sometimes the Lord would fall flat into the sea. Text 9. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would also run very fast across the sand dunes, mistaking them for Govardhan. As he ran, he would wail and cry loudly. Text 10. Sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mistook the small parks of the city for Vrindavan. Sometimes he would go there, dance and chant, and sometimes fall unconscious in spiritual ecstasy. 11. The extraordinary transformations of the body due to transcendental feelings would never have been possible for anyone but the Lord, in whose body all transformations were manifest. 12. The joints of his hands and legs would sometimes become separated by 8 inches, and they remain connected only by the skin. 13. Sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's hands, legs, and head would all enter within his body, just like the withdrawn limbs of a tortoise. 14. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to manifest wonderful ecstatic symptoms. His mind appeared vacant, and there were only hopelessness and disappointment in his words. Text 15. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to express his mind in this way. Where is the Lord of my life who is playing his flute? What shall I do now? Where should I go to find the son of Maharaj Nanda? Text 16. To whom should I speak? Who can understand my disappointment? Without the son of Nanda Maharaj, my heart is broken. 17. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always expressed bewilderment and lamented in separation from Krishna. At such times, he used to recite the slokas from Ramananda Raya's drama known as Jagannath Vallabha Nataka. 18. Srimati Radharani used to lament, our Krishna does not realize what we have suffered from injuries inflicted in the course of loving affairs. We are actually misused by love because love does not know where to strike and where not to strike. Even Cupid does not know of our very much weakened condition. What shall I tell anyone? No one can understand another's difficulties. Our life is actually not under our control, for youth will remain for 2 or 3 days and soon be finished. In this condition, O Creator, what will be our destination? 19. Srimati Radharani spoke. in distress due to separation from Krishna. Oh, what shall I say of my distress? After I met Krishna, my loving propensities sprouted, but upon separating from him, I sustained a great shock, which is now continuing like the sufferings of a disease. The only physician for this disease is Krishna himself, but he is not taking care of the sprouting plant of devotional service. What can I say about the behavior of Krishna? Outwardly, he's a very attractive young lover, but at heart, he's a great cheat, very expert in killing others' wives. 20. Srimati Radharani continued lamenting about the consequences of loving Krishna. My dear friend, I do not understand the regulative principles given by the Creator. I loved Krishna for happiness, but the result was just the opposite. I am now in an ocean of distress. It must be that now I am going to die, for my vital force no longer remains. This is my state of mind. 21. By nature, loving affairs are very crooked. They are not entered with sufficient knowledge, nor do they consider whether a place is suitable or not, nor do they look forward to the results. By the ropes of his good qualities, Krishna, who is so unkind, has bound my neck and hands, and I am unable to get relief. 22. In my loving affairs, there's a person named Madhya. His qualities are thus: personally, he possesses no gross body, yet he is very expert in giving pains to others. He has 5 arrows, and fixing them on his bow, he shoots them into the bodies of innocent women. Thus, these women become invalids. It would be better if he took my life without hesitation, but he does not do so. He simply gives me pain. 23. In the scriptures, it is said that one person can never know the unhappiness in the mind of another. Therefore, what can I say of my dear friend Lalita and the others? Nor can they understand the unhappiness within me. They simply try to console me repeatedly, saying, "Dear friend, be patient." 24. I say, my dear friends, you are asking me to be patient, saying that Krishna is notion of mercy and that sometime in the future he will accept me. However, I must say that this will not console me. A living entity's life is very flickering. It is like water on the leaf of a lotus flower. Who will live long enough to expect Krishna's mercy? That's up to 24. Is that correct, Prabhu?
That's right, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah. So, say short section today. As you know, the chapter 1 and 2 are the summarization of entire Madhya Lila and Antya Lila. So, the intention of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author, was that he was writing this Chaitanya Charitamrita at a very old age. So, he was not sure whether he will live till he completes the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. That is why he compiled the entire Madhya Lila in the summary form in the previous chapter, first chapter 1 itself. And then also he covered some part of the Antya Lila in the last chapter and the next part in this chapter. So specifically, if you recollect, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived in this planet for about 48 years, out of which first 24 years was before his took up sannyas. So that's what is covered in the Adi Lila primarily before sannyas pastimes. And next 24 years of the life of Lord Chaitanya covers both Madhya Lila and Antya Lila. Out of that, we hear that in this 22nd part of Lord Chaitanya's life, 24 years, first 6 years was involved in the traveling within for South India tour like that. That's what is discussed. And that is the primary portion for Madhya Lila. And then out of the rest of the 18 years of his life on this earth planet, so 6 years was a more association with devotees like that. That was described. That is the first portion of Antya Lila that is described in the last chapter also. So now this second chapter describes the summary of the entire life of Lord Chaitanya for the last 12 years of his life. These last 12 years of life, the primary characteristic is that Lord Chaitanya is personally experiencing all the symptoms of Srimati Radharani that we're going to listen. So he was primarily in primarily experiencing Radharani's symptoms during that time. So that is what is the last 12 chapters, 12 years of his life. That's called within Antelila, last portion of Antelila. So now what we're getting is a quick summary of those things. So this is very advanced emotions that Lord Chaitanya is experiencing. We're getting a quick summary. Of course, after this chapter, we'll go through detailed pastimes of Madhya Lila and then later on Antelila like that. So now we're just getting coming attractions like that. There are only hardly one or two or three verses with purports today. Everything is a simple translation only. So I'll cover a few of them. So basically, the chapter is titled "The Ecstatic Manifestations of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu," like his ecstatic symptoms basically. So text one is describing that Kaviraj Goswami is saying that I will relate the synopsis way, last division of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, and I shall describe his Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental ecstasy, which appears like madness due to separation from Krishna. So that's considered like a transcendental madness, his state of mind, which was in separation of Krishna, like Srimati Radharani's mood. Of course, text 2 is the glorification of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaitacharya Prabhu, and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. And then text 3 is describing the last 12 years of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? So during that time, Lord Chaitanya manifested all symptoms of ecstasy in separation of Krishna, specifically. That's a that's a Vipralamba Bhava, it's also called sometimes. So now text 4. So some of the symptoms are described in the next set of verses. See, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whether it's day or night time, his state of mind was identical to Radharani's state of mind. But when Radharani's state of mind in Srimad Bhagavatam is described, Uddhava comes to Vrindavan to console gopis on behalf of Krishna. So when Uddhava came that time to Vrindavan to see the gopis, he saw Radharani was in a severe extreme mode of ecstasy and separation like that. That time that is a pastime where she even talks to Bumblebee like that. So the similar to that, Lord Chaitanya's mood was there like that in separation of Krishna basically. Krishna has left Vrindavan, so uh, Radharani is in that mood of separation like that. Similar mood our Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also was exhibiting at that time. That mood, as described, it reflects the mindness of separation from Krishna, and his activities were based on forgetfulness, and his talks were always based on madness. It seems that was his state. And see, some extreme symptoms are described. We cannot understand why that is so, but obviously, many of the symptoms are described in Nectar of Devotion, including later chapters of Nectar of Devotion, where the highest symptoms of Mahabhava symptoms of Radharani are described. So these are the same symptoms Lord Chaitanya exhibited, it seems. Normally, it's not possible for any ordinary people like that. So nobody can imitate them. So it was even blood came out from the pores of his body, his sweat pores, and his teeth were loosened, and his whole body became slender for some time. That means very thin. And another moment, his whole body became very fat. Also, it seems like that. So it's not like our material obese becoming obese or losing a lot of weight. Not like that. These are transcendental ecstatic symptoms like that. So now, uh, let me move along. Yeah, it's also described Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though actually Krishna was originally blackish color, right? But when Krishna is observed in the mood of gopis or Radharani, he also exhibits fair complexion, it seems, in Krishna Lila also. That's described by Prabhupada and one of the purports here. So now, text 7. So remember in Jagannath Puri, the residence where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made that small room, that room used to be called as Gambhira. So that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to stay in that room, but in the night time he did not sleep during this time, 12 hours, 12 years of last manifest pastimes here. So he used to grind his mouth, is described, and also head on the wall, and his face sustained injuries all over it seems because of this. So now, in fact, we had the brief and description of this previously also in Adli also. So now text 8 describes, even though the entire house is locked, because the devotees want to make sure that Lord Chaitanya is safe and secure. So they used to lock the homes in the night time with all the doors closed. But still, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to disappear sometimes. He used to, and then later on, they used to find him outside the Simhadwara at the main entrance gate of the Jagannath temple. And sometimes he would be found in the sea. We'll see here the detailed pastimes later on that's coming up. But they used to find them in the sea like that, falling in the sea like that. And then uh, this again describes how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was absorbed in the mood of Vrindavan. Everything he sees in the mood of Vrindavan. For example, if he sees the sand dunes, like sand dunes are something that are formed, it seems, due to wind from the sea, because of winds from the sea. So sand forms like a hill kind of thing, like they're called sand dunes or Chataka Parvata, it seems. So, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to think they're Govardhan hill like that, because in the hill shape, right? Even though it's like just sand hill, he used to consider that as Govardhan hill because it's always an absorption of Vrindavan. So he used to run at very high speed, it seems, crying very loudly and exhibiting the state of mind of Srimati Radharani like that. So that's how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always observing Krishna and his pastimes, it seems, during that time. Uh, yeah, he is described in the purport by Prabhupada that even though he's crying, he's exhibiting, he's enjoying the transcendental bliss of separation and meeting, both. So for us, it's just like sorrow, but for him, it's the ecstatic motion of bliss, it seems like that. Now, and when he sees some other city parks, right, small parks that are in city, Jagannath Puri, then that reminds him of Vrindavan forest, like that, because park has some green vegetation, right? So that reminds of Vrindavan forest. So you'd go there, dance and chant, and sometimes fall unconscious in spiritual ecstasy, it seems. So this kind of, there are lots of extraordinary transformations of the body were experienced by him with due to transcendental feelings, which are not possible for any ordinary soul. These are very high emotion systems, emotions and transformations. So some of them are described by Krishna Goswami in the next few verses. So in the 11th verse purport, Prabhupada indicates that these are actually symptoms of Mahabhava, or the highest ecstasy. So these are not to be found in anyone's body like that. So generally, even Radharani's happiness day is coming up also. Radharani is referred to as Mahabhava Swarupini. That means personality who exhibits the symptoms of Mahabhava like that. So she's the epitome of all the transcendental emotions like that. For example, the best bliss we can experience is with love of Godhead. And with that love of Godhead is symptomized by emotions, wonderful emotions. Because even for ordinary dealings, we only with emotions in relationships will experience love, will experience the bliss of love. So among those emotions, the highest of them is called Mahabhava. Those emotions that Srimati Radharani exhibits, it seems. So now text 12. So these are some of the symptoms of at that highest ecstasy form. We cannot even imagine these things, right? So the way it described. For example, the joints in his hands and legs, they would become separated by 8 inches and they remain connected only by skin. That means there's like a gap kind of thing between joints, like 8 inches is a big, long thing, right? Long gap. And then sometimes, like how Jagannath, we don't see his hands, like similar to that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's limbs of the body, hands, legs, and head, they all will enter within his body, it seems. Just like tortoise, how it withdraws his limbs. When there's danger, it withdraws his limbs so that it is safe. Similar to that. So these are not, anybody cannot imitate these things. So these are all things that will confirm Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord himself also. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to manifest wonderful ecstatic symptoms like this, and his mind appeared vacant, and uh, because of feelings of separation, He was feeling like hopeless and disappointed in his words. It seems like that. This is not like ordinary disappointment, though. Yeah, these are ecstatic symptoms. And he used to also express his mind in this way. How? Where is the Lord of my life? Who's playing his flute? What shall I do now? Where should I go to find the son of Maharaj Nanda? So he's in separation of Krishna like that. In the text 16, he's continuing, Lord Chaitanya. To whom should I speak? Who can understand my disappointment? Without the son of Maharaj, my heart is broken. Like that. In this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always expressed bewilderment and lamented in separation from Krishna in the mood of Radharani. So that time, this was one of the great service Ramananda Rai did. Ramananda Rai was one of the close associates, loving associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What did he do? In order to supplement the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not disturb the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but to supplement the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or to improve the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to stay in that mood like that, he used to recite some slokas from a drama that's known as Jagannatha Vallabha Nataka, it seems. So, next three verses are from that Jagannath Vallabha Natika. So, basically, in this drama, they're describing Srimati Radharani's lamentation and her expressions of love like that. So she's saying that she's lamenting, oh, our Krishna does not realize we suffered from what we have suffered from injuries in the loving affairs. We're actually misused by love because even Cupid doesn't know of our weekend condition. Who can I tell? Nobody can understand. And actually, no one can understand another's difficulties. Our life is not actually not actually in our control. Like that, she's describing her condition like that. What will be our destination like that? These will uh, enhance the mood of Lord Chaitanya Prabhu because he's already in that mood of separation. That's why he loves this kind of a like that. So now Srimati Radharani, in distress from separation of Krishna, she also says like that, after met Krishna, my loving propensities sprouted, but again now I'm in great shock, which is now continuing like a disease. No, the doctor can cure me, only Krishna himself, but he's not taking care of me now. What can I say? So outwardly he's a very attractive young lover, but at heart is a great cheat, very expert in killing others' wife. So remember in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, such kind of expressions from Radharani and Gopis are considered like a special kind of talk uh, that wherein the lover Krishna is rebuked sometimes with some kind of strong words. Sarcastic comments are made against Krishna like that. This is what this drama is also describing for us. Now, next verse, Radharani is continuing to lament. I do not understand the regulatory principles given by the Creator. I loved Krishna for happiness, but I got the opposite, distress. And now I'm going to die because I cannot remain. My mental force no longer remains. This is my state of mind. Like that, Radharani is describing. So continuing to that same mood, by nature's love, loving affairs are very crooked. They're not entered with sufficient knowledge. Nor do they consider the place is sufficient. Nor do they look forward to results. Uh, so I'm unable to get relief from this grief, she's saying like that. And then the next verse, there's in my loving affairs, there's a person named Madana. His qualities are like this. How are the qualities? He doesn't have any gross body. Remember, we know Krishna doesn't have any material body made of, like we have material body made of earth, water, fire, air, ether. He doesn't have the gross body. But he's expert in giving pains to others, she's saying. And also he with the 5 arrows, he shoots them into the bodies of innocent women and they become invalid. Uh, it would be better if he took my life without hesitation, but he simply gives me pain, like that she's saying. Again, these are sarcastic comments expressing feelings of separation. So now she's saying in the scriptures, it said that one person can never know the unhappiness in the mind of another. So therefore, what can I say of my dear friends, Lalita and others? So I don't know how much suffering they are going through, Lalita and others, like that she's saying. The next sentence is saying, they can understand my unhappiness also, because that is within me only. They simply try to console me repeatedly, saying that, dear friend, be patient, no worry, like that. They're simply saying like that, but they cannot understand my mind, like that she's saying. So the last verse for today is saying, uh, my dear friends. So when they're saying, dear friends, be patient, she's responding. What does she say? Like that she's saying, my dear friends, you're asking me to be patient, saying that Krishna is an ocean of mercy and that sometime in the future he will accept me. So they're saying, don't worry, just be patient for some time. In future he will accept you, like that they're saying. But however, I must say this will not console me. Why? Why those words are not consoling that Krishna will accept her in future? Saying a living entity's life is very flickering. So it's like water on the leaf of a lotus flower. Because lotus flower doesn't retain any water. Any water that you put on it, it just goes away quickly. It's like smooth surface. So similarly, I don't know how long I will live to expect Krishna's mercy. Like that she's saying. That means when somebody says, when the other gopis are saying, don't worry, be patient, he'll be merciful to you, like that. Then she's saying, I don't know, Krishna's mercy will come for after a long time. I don't know whether I will live or that long, like that she's saying basically in this verse. There are no purports for any of these verses. So we just discuss the meaning of the translation only. There are only 2 or 3 verses in the whole section we discussed today with some purport. Yeah, we'll pause here. We'll continue with more description of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feelings of separation in the next session also tomorrow. Yeah, we'll end there. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisances to devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kupasandubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.